Hey guys, I'm Zorana from Born to Produce, and today we are going to talk about some important mixing techniques. I can give you a lot of mixing advice, but today we are going to focus on 5 of them. Pick the right elements to start with. When you start a new project, choose elements that work well together and have different timbres. A helpful way to think of timbre is that it's the texture of the sound. This looks like an arranging suggestion on the surface, but it really has a massive effect on mixing, and it is a really important part of it. If you pick the wrong elements, then no amount of mixing will make it sound good. If you pick, for example, 2 types of synths that sound very similar, later you will struggle with mixing and enhancing both frequency ranges. There are different ways to combat this. The easiest is to change one of the leads to something that has a different timbre. And also you can change the pitch of it so it is playing lower or higher than the other element that it is conflicting with. One last thing you can do is change the frequency balance of the sounds. If the sounds are conflicting at a certain frequency range, then you can use EQ to dip one of the sounds and boost the other. This is made really easy in Cubase 10.5 with the spectral curve analysis. Sidechaining kick and bass. The common situation where you should use sidechaining is with kick and bass. Why is that? It's because they have similar low frequencies and you always need them both to be full and yet punchy and tight. Even if they sound good separately, when you play them together, it's like they're fighting for the same place in the mix, and you can't hear them very well. Masking is the term you use when 2 instruments or samples are occupying the same space. Now, you can always try to level them with an EQ, but if you cut some frequencies in the bass, for instance, you're not just EQing, you're taking away some essential frequencies that make your bass sound good as it should. The best way to stop masking between kick and the low-end elements of your mix is sidechaining. You just lower the volume of one low-frequency bass whenever the kick plays. Although this technique is used to extremes in genres like EDM, hip-hop, it is used in any mix, no matter the genre, where you get masking between the low-end elements of your mix. First, you need a compressor that has the option of sidechaining. You have many choices. Usually the compressor that comes with your DAW will have a sidechain input, but you can also use third-party plugins like HCOM from Waves, R-Compressor, or FabFilter Pro C. I have a kick here and a bass track. Putting the compressor on the bass track. In Cubase and Nuendo you have the Activate Sidechain button here. Then move to the kick part and you will see it in Sends. I will send the sidechain compressor from the bass to the kick track. So every time when the kick hits, it triggers the compressor and compresses the bass signal, clears up the muddy frequencies and keeps the kick and bass both sounding nice and punchy, with no low frequency masking. You can lower the threshold and increase your ratio so the compressor will take effect more or less, depending on your needs. Sidechained multiband compression to create separation between leads and vocals or instrument. A moment ago we talked about how to solve the kick and bass similar frequency situation. And now we'll move on to another issue, and that is how to separate vocals from lead instruments and bring them to the front of your mix. I have my leads here and the vocals. They are conflicting a bit with each other. Basically, the lead is masking the vocal over certain frequency range, but not all of the frequencies. So we're going to use sidechained multiband compression to solve this. First, we insert the multiband compressor on the lead channel. I'll be using isotope neutron compressor. There is already a standard compressor on this channel, but that is just to even the levels. And the second one will serve you for sidechaining and moving all the extra frequencies out of the way for vocals to be heard. Now sidechain it to the vocals, just like I did before with the kick. Next, you need to configure a compressor so that it lowers the volume of the conflicting frequencies of the leads whenever the vocals come in. You can see, in the neutron multiband compressor you have 3 bands. Each band you can change to cover a different frequency range, and each band has its own compressor, which means you can compress or lower the volume of very specific frequency ranges of a sound. Using band 3, let's set this between 6000 and 14,000 Hz. And then we'll set up the compressor to the right settings. What this means is that when the vocal is playing, this multiband compressor will turn only the specific frequency range of the leads down, making space for the vocals to cut through the mix. I will set the ratio low because I don't want the leads to be squashed. The attack and release option, it's where you can experiment with the volume shape. It can come in a subtle way with a longer attack, or the release can be longer and it just casually flows back into the track. What is the conclusion based on these rules? Sidechaining can be very useful, not only for kick and bass, and vocals and leads, but also for any instruments that are fighting for the same space in the mix, so you can use it anytime that happens. Beefing up a kick with a high Q EQ boost at 50 Hz. The kick drum is the foundation of your drum track. It needs to be tight and punchy, with all the low frequencies filling the mix along with the bass and middle ones to flow through the mix. Let's hear my kick here. Sometimes you will notice that the low end is present, but it's not super punchy, it's lacking a bit. So for that you can use a sharp peak parametric. For low-end instruments and sounds, it's not that often used, but it can help make the kick more punchy, and it's a really helpful trick to have up your sleeve when mixing the kicks in your tracks. Rely on your ears more than anything. As I mentioned, a lot of mixing techniques are out there and plenty of tutorials and professionals you can listen to. Many rules of what you should do and what not. There are some basics and musts, of course, like the ones I talked about earlier in the video, but when doing the detailed job, there comes a moment when you can get distracted by all the tips from different people and you blindly listen to that and not your own ears. If you're a producer or composer, even a beginner, I will assume that you have the talent and a good ear, so use that. We are all different, we have different tastes, and maybe something that a very experienced producer suggested just won't work in your case. Unless it's me, of course, in which case you should listen to everything I say and do everything I tell you. Then follow your instinct and experiment with tweaking your sounds and creations. Try to listen to it many times and on many devices, your monitors, speakers, headphones, laptop speakers, phone. Maybe you can even play your song on TV to hear how it sounds. And if it sounds good anywhere, then you've done the job properly. Don't forget to take breaks to give your ears and brain a rest. A couple of days break will change your perceived mix. If you have a fellow producer, ask them to listen and give you feedback. This can be invaluable. Last top tip. Close your eyes sometimes. That can really help your ears to listen and focus more carefully on the audio and not be distracted by the things happening on screen. That's it for today. If you want more mixing tips, you can check out other videos we have on our YouTube channel, or you can go to our website where you can find a lot of professional courses like Mixing Electronic Music Masterclass and many more. Hope you enjoyed this video and see you in the next one.